Welcome, guys, to this free Q&A hosted by CFS Health and myself. I'm so excited about this. I love doing these things when I wake up in the morning and I've got something like this on. I absolutely love it. We're in for an hour together, and I'm here to help you. Hey, Mark, loud and clear. Where are you tuning in from, Mark? Let us know in the chat. Roger is in UK. We've got Becky's here, not too far from Julie by the sounds of it. Hey, Daniela from London. Kavita from Canada. Hey, Liz in New York. I know you. Western Canada, Angels from Germany. Amazing. Cornwall. Hey, Tasman. We've got Canada. We've got two Tammys in the chat. Imogen, Wales, UK. Denver, Colorado. Ontario. Brisbane. We are almost neighbours, although I move around a lot. So I go pretty much all over Australia and overseas. Kira Ora from New Zealand, hello. How good is this, guys? Have a look in the chat. We've got Diana Leaf tuning in from Hawaii. Aloha. Jeanette from Byron Bay. Wonderful. Hey, team. Welcome to your Q&A. And we decided to do this to just help the wider community. Obviously, every single day, every single week, we help all our paying members from around the world. We help people in 72 countries. I think it's actually 74 now. We help people with chronic fatigue syndrome and associated illnesses get healthy and start living again. And so, we're very hands-on with our members, and we help them every step of the way with recovery. And from the outside in, it can look like there's either not too much to do with recovery, or maybe you think that recovery is not possible for you. Maybe you think you're too old. Maybe you think you've got too many different symptoms. Maybe you think you're different than everybody else. Let me know in the chat if that's you. If you have those thoughts, or you're like, oh no, maybe they're just like lucky, or maybe I'm just too old, or I hear it every single day. We've worked with kids as young as 8 years old, all the way up to grandmas and grandpas in their 80s and almost 90s. And I've seen recoveries from every single age group, every single severity you can absolutely imagine over the last 16 years. Almost 2 decades now I've been working with people with chronic fatigue syndrome. So if you're new here, my name is Toby Morrison. I suffered from chronic fatigue syndrome myself as a teenager. And it was one of the most isolating, hardest experiences of my life. And you can imagine the suffering as a teenager when the internet over 20 years ago didn't have Facebook, didn't have YouTube, didn't have any tutorials or help online. In fact, the only thing that was online about chronic fatigue syndrome was how horrible it was and that you couldn't get better. When I went through it, I was lucky enough to find a really supportive doctor, and he was able to kind of tell me that recovery was possible, but it wasn't up to him to make me better. It was up to myself to help myself get better. I went on a journey. Obviously, we tried everything under the sun. My parents remortgaged their house. We didn't come from money. We had one car. We never went on an overseas holiday. They remortgaged their house to help me with my recovery. And from hundreds of supplements to literally taking hundreds of Chinese medicine balls every single day. I don't know if you've done that, but I did that. We went to everyone and everything. And my parents literally bent over backwards to try and help me get better. It wasn't until 3 years into that journey that we realized that there is no quick fix, there is no overnight pill. Unfortunately, that's what we were seeking for those first 3 years. We were seeking for a guru or a pill to fix me, basically. Of course, it came to me coming to the hardest pain point, which was realizing that no one could fix me, or no pill could fix me. But it also came with relief, realizing if it's up to me, if it's to be, it's up to me. If I'm going to get better, I have to do something and take control of my health. Yeah, there's 24 hours in the day that I have. What can I do to change that? And so I went on a recovery journey, basically. Over the last year and a half after that, which was, I think it was 4 years into it, or 3.5 years into it, that's when I took recovery really seriously. And I started to make true, tangible progress. So I would look in the mirror and actually see my muscles come back online. I lost about 20 kilos of muscle mass. I was a very fit athlete. I basically went down to a skeleton. I had no energy. I couldn't get out of bed. Like I said, I was so deconditioned that I couldn't really do anything, to be honest. And if I'm going to be fully transparent, there were days where I wanted to give up, and I don't say that lightly. And so I'm sharing this with you not to be sad, not for sympathy, but for empathy. I want you to know that what you're going through is 100% real. Some people have probably said to you that you're making this shit up, that it's all in your head, that you need to be more motivated. Insert everything else you've probably been told by friends, doctors, and so forth. And it's hard, but I want you to know that recovery is possible, provided you do the right things at the right time, and you will get the right results. Some of you have worked with me in the past, and you know that for fact. You've seen it and witnessed it in your own life, and maybe it's time to refocus that energy and attention on what matters. Or you might be totally new here and you go, who the hell is this Toby Morrison guy? It's my intention to help you, whether this is in a free forum or in our paid programs. That doesn't really matter to me. What really matters is you getting help for yourself and your recovery. I'd love to know what resonated with you through that story when I just shared that with you in the chat. What's the thing that stood out for you? Was it that maybe there are doubts that you have and that you're excluding yourself from recovery? Or is it the realization that recovery is possible? Maybe you've been on that journey where you've tried every freaking thing under the sun and you're at this junction point where it's time for you to take control of your health. Yeah, I'm sure if you have CFS. Hey, Mike. Thank you, Roger. Yeah. A lot of people go, wow, that's amazing, Toby. You've got so much courage. I don't really have much courage. What I experienced was so damn painful that I made a pact to myself that when I got better, I'd make sure no one else had to go through what I did alone. That was it. By the age of 19, I was knocking on doctors' doors all around Australia, calling specialists and doctors, telling them recovery was possible and that here's a plan and we can create a plan together. And of course, most people laughed at me. And it wasn't until Dr. Lionel Lubitz, who is the head of Royal Children's Hospital of chronic fatigue syndrome here in Australia, took a meeting with me, and I showed him the program, I showed him what we were going to do, and he loved it. And from that day on, he started referring clients to me, and that's how I really started helping people with chronic fatigue syndrome get healthy and start living again. So it's been a journey, that's for sure. And I'm very, very grateful to be here serving you. Yeah. Just reading through some comments here. A doctor today told you too complicated. You're not too complicated. What you're going through is complicated. So here's the thing about chronic fatigue syndrome that you need to understand. Chronic fatigue syndrome affects every single aspect of your health and your life. Agree? Yeah. It affects your physical well-being. It affects your mental, emotional well-being. It affects your cognitive function, and it affects your life, your spiritual well-being, right? Your personal development, big time. This is very, very never spoken about. People don't talk about the spiritual aspect of going through something like chronic fatigue syndrome because it totally affects your identity, who you are as a person, what you can do, what you can't do, what people perceive you as, what you perceive yourself as. And it can be absolutely devastating, right? So chronic fatigue syndrome is extremely complicated, right? It affects everything from your nervous system, your microbiome system, your gut, your immune system, your hormonal system. Like, it affects every aspect, your circadian rhythm. So here's the thing. You're not complicated. What you're experiencing is complicated. To overcome chronic fatigue syndrome actually doesn't require more complication, though. You need to simplify what's complicated so you can start to get healthy, right? What you're going through is complicated enough. Adding more complication to it isn't going to help you with your recovery. Hands up if you've tried a million different things, or you've tried to get really complicated on your diet or your gut health or something specific for your recovery, and you're like, all right, I'm going to solve this with your scientific hat on, and you end up more overwhelmed, you end up with more symptoms, you end up feeling worse than you did before. Hands up if that's been you. Yeah, welcome to the club. Hey, Peter. Hey, Enya. And so we need to stop that. So the first clue, if you could write this down, is recovery doesn't require complication. I'd love you to take some notes today. Recovery does not require complication. If you want to write this to yourself, I think this is really important. What you are already going through is complicated enough. What you need is simplicity. You can write that to yourself. Think about this. Has anything bad ever happened from simplifying things? Has anything bad ever happened from simplifying things? Yes or no in the chat. Let me know. Have you ever experienced that? Hey, Carol. Hey, Jen. Beverly, Michelle. All you guys who don't have your video on, I would love to see your face, by the way. Sandra, Becky, I can see you. You know, thank you, Michelle. It's so nice to see your faces. You're allowed pajamas, by the way. You're allowed to lay on your bed. There is zero judgment here. You can be eating breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Honestly, if you look around this room, Liz, hey, Carol, hey, Eve, hey, Jen, thank you. Thanks, Tammy. There you are. It's so nice to see your face. It really is. I know our worlds are super far apart, but what you're going through is pretty crap. And I think being in a group and seeing each other is super powerful as well. Yeah. And so for the next little while, we've basically got about 45 minutes together. I'd just love to help you. And so there's two things we're going to do. I'm going to answer a couple of questions that pop through. And if there's a theme that you'd like me to talk about, so if you're struggling with movement, let's say, or you're struggling with mindset, let me know a theme that you'd like some help with. And by the way, in the chat, you can hit the like button on people's themes that they ask. And the more people that like it, then obviously I'll talk more about it. So let me know if there's a theme that you'd like me to talk about, whether it's like movement with chronic fatigue syndrome or nutrition or routine or baseline. Maybe you're further along with your recovery and you're integrating into life. I'm happy to talk about that too. Look here. If you are going to ask a question, please make it short and precise. So if you've just posted a long question, I won't be able to answer that. 1 to 2 sentences maximum, please, just so I can help everybody here. Okay, so simplify your question a little bit, just so I can help you. And again, just pop in the chat if there's a theme that you'd like me to talk about. Danielle has asked a question here. How do you not react to symptoms? How do you focus on getting healthy when out of nowhere you're hit with a headache or fatigue? I understand eventually it won't happen, but this is still happening. Yeah. So this is a really, really great question. How do you react and respond to symptoms, particularly when you're trying to just focus on your health and move forwards? Here's what you need to understand. You can't wait to feel good to get better. You have to start with where you're at in order to get better later. And what I mean by that is symptoms are going to arise and you're going to experience symptoms when you start your recovery, right? It's just part of the parcel. And so when we understand that, we realize that symptoms aren't necessarily bad. They are what they are. Now, here's the kicker. You still need to make sure you're not focusing on your symptoms all the time. You need to still have a holistic health focus. So day to day, when symptoms arise, you are able to tune into your body and know what to do in those situations. See, most people, when they're not getting a plan and they're not getting help and they don't have coaching or accountability, what will happen is they will probably push themselves anyway, which is not what we recommend. So you push yourself way beyond your baseline because you get excited or you have a bit of energy, and then you feel like absolute crap within a few hours or days. And then you just react. Oh my God, the world's ending. Oh my God, it's happening again. I'm just not getting better. This is terrible. Oh my God, my life's over. Anyone relate? Yeah. Yeah. So that is step one. We need to stop the actual cause of the problem first and foremost. There's no point me saying, stop focusing on your symptoms when right now the actions and behaviors that you're doing, no fault of your own, by the way, no fault of your own. It's not your fault that you're doing this. You just haven't been, this is why we started CFS Health almost 2 decades ago. So what we want to do is stop the cause. The cause is, creating symptoms that are unnecessarily created in the first place. Now, there'll be a low level of baseline of symptoms that will just be there day to day, right? What we want to do is not magnify or amplify that experience, okay? So when symptoms do arise, we don't want to go, oh my God, this is terrible, my life's ending. It's like, no, ask this question instead. What do I need to do to help myself in this moment? We flip the script. What can I do to help myself in this moment? Now, that might be, I need to eat some damn food. I haven't eaten in 5 hours and my blood sugar levels are super low. It might be you haven't drunk enough water. You mentioned headaches before. Hydration can be a big problem there. Potentially, you just need to lay down guilt-free and just relax. I mentioned the word guilt-free because a lot of you lay down with a lot of guilt, and that's not resting. So if you're laying there for 20 minutes and you're beating yourself up and you're saying, oh, you're lazy and, oh, you look at you again, you're just not getting anything done and you're not ticking off your to-do list and da-da-da-da-da. And then the 20 minutes goes and your heart rate is actually increased. Your blood pressure's gone up. It's not actually conducive of healing. And so the question you want to ask is this conducive of healing? You can ask yourself that regularly. We call this a pattern interrupt. Whether it's meditation, whether it's a yoga nidra, whether it's just refueling your body, whether it's just putting your phone down and stopping Dr. Google search and just sitting in nature. All these things will calm your nervous system, will then lower your symptoms, but then again, you can have still a holistic view of a health-focused approach. It's really important that you don't track symptoms. I've never met anybody who's gotten better who's tracked their symptoms. And I've worked with thousands and thousands, over 5,000 people individually over the last 15 years. And I've never met one person who tracks their symptoms who got better. So we don't track symptoms at CFS Health, we track health. Okay? And how we do that is we track our overall general well-being. So let's say it's a scale from 1 to 10. 10's being, I feel fantastic, life's great. To 1, I'm feeling horrible. All you want to do is, based off what you're doing or not doing, is just measuring your general overall being of your entire health. Yeah. So rather than, oh my God, I've got leg pain, or oh my God, I've got a sore throat, it would be, I didn't sleep well last night. What am I on the scale of 1 to 10 in my overall health and well-being right now? Yeah. Movement. So let's say Diana is exercising again and she's moving, but she's pushed herself a little bit too far beyond her current capacity. What do you feel out of 10 in your general overall health and well-being? It might be a 2, right? But if she's doing the right amount and doing the right things, it could be a 5, 6, or 7, right? Because she's not feeling any worse than she currently is. And so the key here is consistency over intensity of doing the right things at the right time and then building upon that. Does this make sense, team? Can you just type in the word sense if this makes sense to you? Daniela, does that help? Or was it Diana? Yeah, okay, cool. Don't track symptoms. If you're tracking symptoms, throw the freaking thing in the bin. It won't help you. It'll help you manage your illness for the rest of your life. Do you really want that? So people always come to me and they say, well, Toby, the doctor told me I need to manage my symptoms. Let's talk about managing symptoms for a moment. So if you have to manage something, it's something that is ongoing. And so think about what you're telling yourself when you're saying, I have to manage my symptoms. Now, I'm pretty sure what you're going through is already like a full-time job. Having chronic fatigue syndrome or experiencing this is a full-time job. You don't need another full-time job on top of that, managing symptoms and tracking symptoms. That's exhausting, okay? Like I said, we track health. There's key specific areas of progress that we can track. So your physical capacity, your cognitive capacity, your mental, emotional well-being, and then your spiritual, personal development well-being. We track all of this inside our programs, and we help members identify which areas of progress they're making in those 4 key areas. So I'll explain them again. Physical capacity, cognitive capacity, mental, emotional well-being, and spiritual and personal development. They're the 4 key areas of progress. You can write them down. And so the great thing is, as you start to focus on your health and you start to stop managing your symptoms and managing your health, but you actually just start to focus on your well-being and start to improve your health, guess what happens? As your health goes up, your symptoms go down. Make sense? Here's the problem. It doesn't happen overnight. And that's the hardest part, because you'll do this for a week and you'll go, why isn't it working? You'll do this for 3 days and go, I've been doing it for 3 days, nothing's happening. Here's the thing, it takes a minimum of 8 weeks of consistent effort and work with this for you to notice physiological adaptation in the body. So even when a healthy person goes to the gym and they start a regime, it takes a minimum of 8 weeks for their body to physiologically adapt and actually to show true signs of progress. Now, for someone who's going through chronic fatigue syndrome, we're not making huge gains right now. We're actually holding ourselves back. We have a less is more approach and philosophy initially, just so we stop the pushing and crashing, which means that that progress will take a little bit longer because we're actually not working at the total capacity that we normally could be, okay? And so just keep that in mind, that if you're getting disappointed because you're not seeing progress straight away, just remember, it's not going to happen overnight. And this is why we always say consistency over intensity wins the race. We've got, let's see, some more questions here. Ruska, hey Ruska, great to see you. Got a question. I've become very set in my routine to the point where I don't get up within my rest times, even though my body is starting to feel pretty good. This is great. This is a great sign of progress right here. I'm worried I may just be over resting now and not doing enough movement. Is there a way to tell if I'm over resting? Also, can stretching cause post-exertional malaise? All right. You've also written here to me privately. I think you said I'm part of the mentorship program, for which I'd like to say thank you, as I'm truly grateful for it. It goes on my gratitude journal often. That's great. I love that you're part of the mentorship and you're getting a lot of value. I just love some guidance on this. Okay. So Hands up if this would be helpful to answer it for you as well. This is like a similar question. Are you over resting? Yep, cool. So here's the thing. If your routine is working, a true, sure sign of it working is that you're starting to feel better. So a lot of you, you think you're trying and you're doing all the right things, but you're not moving forward, you're not getting better. Something's not working in your routine, right? And might not just be the physical routine, but it might be what's going on in your mind, right? The stress response that you're creating every single day. And I'm not saying you're making this up. What you're going through is a very physiological, neurological experience, but we can self-sabotage. Yeah. We can overwhelm ourselves. We can get in our own way of recovery. And a true, sure sign of improving is simply going, I'm starting to feel pretty good. Right. So Rashka, this is an amazing sign. I'm super happy for you. But the problem can be here is when you don't loosen the grip. And so now you're so regimented from this routine, which has helped you, but what got you here won't get you there. And so now it's time to loosen the grip. So I would say, yes, you are over resting. Okay. And I'm not saying don't rest. All we need to do is tweak and change your routine and structure just a little bit. So it allows for you to expand and progress even further in your physical and cognitive and mental emotional capacity. Yeah. Does this make sense so far? You guys with me? So it's not like we go, all right, let's throw out the entire routine because it's not working. It is working. It's a nuanced change here now. If you're still in the mentorship, I'd love you to have a one-on-one session with your momentum coach and get the next steps for you. But just for this one, what I would recommend is start to pick one or two things on a physical or a cognitive capacity and start to implement them in your daily routine. Still have your rest periods, but just don't rest for too long where you're almost becoming irritable with energy. Right. Now, this is not many people experience this because they're not getting the right help. So it's probably if you've never experienced this, you're probably going, I don't even know what you're talking about. That there's like you've got rest, you've got energy there. It's a really great sign of progress. It's just that we need to utilize that energy appropriately for where you're at right now. And so don't be scared. Adding in something appropriate for you. I always like the word appropriate. So the question you want to ask yourself is, does this feel appropriate now? And I'd love you to all write that down. Does this feel appropriate now? And so it might be reading a book for 5 minutes or doing restorative movement or talking to a friend. Yeah. There's a part in recovery that's vital for you to loosen the grip. And what I mean by loosening the grip is actually not trying so hard. So if you're trying super hard, you're holding on for dear life, it becomes kind of exhausting. And Rushka's kind of saying it here where there's kind of a tight grip on the routine and structure. Now, the routine and structure is awesome, but now we need to loosen the grip a little bit and become a little bit more fluid and flexible in your routine as you start to expand your capacity. And the great thing is, as you get better and healthier, you'll even be more relaxed and you won't have to be so nuanced on should I do this, should I not do this, because you're becoming healthier. So you can function appropriately. So really, health is just you functioning and responding appropriately to the stimulus that life gives you. And all we're doing on a really nuanced level initially, if you're going through chronic fatigue syndrome, is we're really nuancing that to support you with where you're at with your current capacity. And then we're helping you expand that appropriately so your body and brain responds to the stimulus at a functional level so you can continue to progress. That's what we do at CFS Health. That's the whole philosophy. Okay. Now, the reason why a lot of you aren't noticing progress is because you're going way beyond your capacity or you're staying way below your capacity. It's black and white. It's either all or nothing, right? You're either 100 miles an hour and you're trying to achieve everything in a day, or you're nothing and you're not getting anywhere. And so the real transformations happens in the sweet spot. the sweet spot of what is appropriate for you right now and day to day as you move forwards. There's a question around afternoon sleep. So the question is, afternoon nap. I nap for 2 hours to maintain my baseline. Is that too much? Here's the deal with daytime sleeping. I don't have an issue with daytime sleeping. In fact, it's necessary as part of the recovery process. If your body is really needing it and your brain is really needing that 2 hours of sleep, which it clearly is, it's very important to keep it there, right? Very important to honor your body, honor your brain. If it's saying, I need to sleep in the day, that's totally fine. Your signs of progress will be minimizing and decreasing that sleep over time. Okay. Now, as you get stronger and healthier, what you would do is then slowly wean that daytime sleep back a little bit. So I would probably start with, 2 hours every day, because that's what you've been doing for, let's say, 2 weeks. If you're doing all the right things and things are going well and your health is maintaining, meaning you're not going up and down like a yo-yo, or you're not getting sick with a cold and flu every week, that's when we decrease your daytime sleep to maybe an hour and 45 minutes. And you would maintain that for about 2 weeks. And then if that feels good, you go, you know what? I can probably go down to 130 now, or 140. And you slowly just wean, again, what feels appropriate. So we're doing the reverse engineer of, normally we add more, but we're decreasing the sleep versus adding more sleep. Because as you get healthy and stronger, you won't need a daytime sleep. Now, what you will do is replace the naps for rest. Yeah. Okay, eventually. So let's say you get to the point where you don't need to sleep during the day. They would be replaced with scheduled rest periods throughout the day that restore energy. And then a little bit like Rushka said, you'll just naturally have more energy, and then you won't need to rest more, and then you'll start to, progress faster as well. So a sign of progress for you will actually be not needing the daytime sleep. One day you'll be able to celebrate that, and you'll go, wow, I did it. I don't need the sleep anymore. I will say this is a process. It's not going to happen overnight. So please don't pressure yourself. You still need to honor your body. And even when you're healthy and fully living again, sometimes you'll just need a daytime sleep, right? Maybe you're exhausted. Maybe you didn't sleep well for 5 days in a row. Maybe there's a bit of stress going on in your life. Listen to your body, right? This is what we call body wisdom. Kathy Sini, I'd love you to ask me what around movement would you like help with? Let me know in the chat and I'll see if I can get to it. Angel Hand says, can you recommend a quiz or a method to find out if you actually have chronic fatigue syndrome? 2 things you need to do if you want to find out if you've got chronic fatigue syndrome. 1, try and find a good doctor who actually believes in chronic fatigue syndrome and understands it. Then you need to go through a bunch of tests to exclude any other serious illness or problem that you might be facing. As long as your symptoms are persisting for 3 to 6 months, it varies depending on which doctor you see. If all other illnesses are excluded and the symptoms have persisted for more than 3 to 6 months, your doctor will most likely diagnose you with chronic fatigue syndrome. If you don't have the resources or you can't find someone in your area who does this, then regardless of you having the diagnosis or not, it's very important to find out if there's any other issues. If there's no other issues, ultimately the same process will help you get healthy and start living again, whether you've been diagnosed or not. So we have a lot of people in our program who aren't diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome from a specialist, but they're in our program because they know they're struggling with these symptoms and they just want to get on with it and get their life back. However, we've got a lot of people, particularly who come from America, from Stanford University, who get diagnosed, and then they come into our program and they've been specifically diagnosed with ME/CFS. And then again, the same process happens anyway. We don't focus on illness, we focus on health. And we're not an illness program, we're a health program. I'm sure you're understanding this now. as well. Faris B, hey man, I can see you kind of just in the frame there. You got a question around what to do when you can't find activities to build your capacity and baseline. So there's a free training, which I'd love you to watch for all of you. It's called the baseline training. It's cfshealth.com/baseline. Brenda, if you can pop that link in the chat, that'd be amazing. In that training, I explained to you that you need to find things that you can do on a daily basis. Now, the problem is, Faris, I'd assume that there's probably lots of things you can do, but you're comparing yourself to your old self of what you used to be able to do. And it's like, well, I can't run. I can't do all the things that I love and that I'm really great at. The hardest part is actually finding what you can do right now. And it might feel so insignificant that it almost feels silly to even do. So I had a client who was a pianist, and I said, what's your goal? And he said, I just want to play piano again. And I said, all right, cool. Let's start. It's going to be part of your routine and baseline. And we're going to do 2 minutes of piano every single day at around 10 a.m. in the morning, right? And the client goes, oh, that's ridiculous. 2 minutes? What am I going to play in 2 minutes? And I said, I don't care. All I care is that you're playing for 2 minutes. And his capacity was obviously very low. He couldn't really leave the house. And he thought it was so stupid that we were doing 2 minutes of piano because he used to play for hours. You know, he would play for 2 hours straight. Just like boom, 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 boom. And I was like, no, you're going to do 2 minutes every single day. We've got your restorative movement in the afternoons. We've got a couple of other things that we're going to do throughout the day. And you've just got to do it every single day, even if you don't feel like it because you think it's stupid. So he did it. And 2 weeks later, we caught up and I said, how did you go? He goes, well, I actually kind of enjoy it now. You know, it feels a bit silly still because I'm only sitting there for 2 minutes, but at least I can do it. And I said, exactly. I said, all right, you go to 4 minutes this week. Of course, if your health maintains, we added again for 2 weeks. And every 2 to 4 weeks, we bumped it up. Now, within 6 months, he was back playing 30 to 40 minutes at a time, right? But we had to start with where he was at. And so I'm sharing this with you because the things that you choose to do probably will feel silly, right? It's like, oh, what's the point? So I'd love you to pick some 1 or 2 things. You could just write a list of what are some cognitive things that I can do right now, even if they don't feel amazing. I'd love you to type some in the chat, guys. You might have some experiences that you do to help yourself. Feel free to share them to help everyone out here. Julie Smith, I'm going to bring you on for a second. Julie Smith's one of our lead mentors here at CFS Health. She's great. And she did our program. And here, I'm coming with you, don't worry. Here we are. I wanted to ask, what are some things that people can do for like cognitive capacity? You know, just like what are some random things that you did maybe in your, you know, through your recovery?
Yeah, it's funny. I was just reading that question in the chat and I thought, oh, that's a good one. Because that's been a really big struggle for me. Probably one of my most difficult areas. For me, timers have been lifesavers. So doing whatever kind of cognitive activity. So whether that's looking at something with my eyes on a screen or my phone and setting timers within my phone to track that to say, your 5 minutes is up. Setting timers for reading, cognitive, you know, things that I'm thinking through, whether it's kind of a conversation that I have to be a little bit more thoughtful about, setting timers for that. And it's something that I've built a little bit at a time. So I'd add a minute when that activity became easier. And the key for me was shutting down before I started to feel bad. So before kind of that decline or you know, everything started to kind of come down and become heavy in my head, it was getting to the point, setting a timer before that happened, and then just allowing that to go a little bit at a time. And I still use them. I use them when I'm on the computer. I set them even for listening to an audiobook. So different things like that for me has helped. I know a lot of people in our program for building cognitive capacity are things like joy activities like puzzles or Legos. Um, those are just a couple of ideas that I could think of, knitting and things like that that people do.
Yeah, and I'm like even just like playing a game with a family friend like Scrabble or Uno or a card game even for 5 minutes or Connect Four, something that feels almost silly, right? These are actually really good things to use moving forwards. We even have a juggling training in our program just to switch on the brain, uh, left and right brain hemispheres. And so whether it's like juggling, whether it's words, puzzles, reading a paragraph of a book, um, watching a video. So Faris, I hope that's given you some ideas on where you can start. What I would do is I'd list what are some things, what's the list of physical things that you could start with right now? What's a list of cognitive things you can start with right now? What's a list of emotional well-being things you can start with right now? Now, emotional well-being is all about learning, yeah, learning about yourself, what you like, what you dislike, your boundaries, your internal compass of yourself. So that's a whole category in and of itself that you could explore in your day-to-day routine. And then, of course, spiritual and personal development too, the evolution of who you're becoming through this whole experience and journey, and your goals and your vision and your values of where you want to move towards. Now, this can feel a bit overwhelming, that fourth part, because you might not even be fully in recovery right now. But as you do that, it's very necessary to have a longer term vision, a longer term goal. What are you doing all this for? What's your why? What's your purpose? I would dare to say that all of you have a purpose behind what's going on right now. There's a bigger reason behind all of this. And a great question to ask is, what's the message in this mess? What's the message? What's this message trying to communicate to you? What's this mess trying to communicate to you? Maybe it's actually bringing you closer to yourself. Yeah. Julie, thanks for sharing. Appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Does that help, guys? Give me a thumbs up if that's useful. Yeah. You know what? Let's do something fun. So I want you to get your pen and paper. I just told you about like what I said to Faris to do. Let's do it in real time. So what I want you to do, because me telling you and then doing it with you is two different things. And I'd love to give you something helpful. So in the left-hand column, we're going to do physical. We're going to spend 30, 40 seconds on each one. So I'd love you to write down what's some physical things you can do right now that is appropriate for where you're at. Now, for some of you, it might be literally moving your hands and feet while you're in bed. It might be looking out the window and staring at things. I'd love you just to jot down what are some physical things you can do right now. Maybe it's sitting up in bed. Maybe it's cooking one meal a day. Whatever feels appropriate for you and you feel like you can do this without feeling any worse than you currently do is what I want you to write down in this list. I'll give you 30 seconds right now to come up with 3 little answers. Awesome. Okay, let's move to cognitive. What are 3 things you can do right now that feel appropriate for you? See you, Lisa. Great to see you. Awesome, Tasman. Tamsin, sorry. Perfect. Get a little bit specific here. Reading, how much? Yes, Barrett's perfect. Doing research on YouTube that you're interested in. Peter, read books that's a growth for me. Have almost read 2 books this year. Amazing. Well, that's pretty freaking cool. Yeah. Let's move over to emotional. Emotional well-being. And Maria, I love that. Working on puzzles. Yes, Maduri, seeing a therapist, going to therapy. Exactly. So it could be like having a coach, being in a program. TV would count as cognitive. If you're watching anything or learning, it would count as cognitive. Great. Breath work, boundaries, meditation, music. Oh, I love that. I love that. And then let's look at spiritual, and we call it personal development. What are some things there? Could be meditation again. It could be, yeah, getting rid of toxic friendships or potentially having new connections. Maybe it's more connection with yourself, getting more true to who you are. Journaling, perfect. These are great. All right, so we're getting some momentum here. Faris thought he couldn't do anything. About 5 minutes ago, Faris like, I can't. There's nothing I can do, and now he's like answering all the questions. I absolutely love it. This is the power of coaching, right? This is the power of being here together and doing this together. All right. All of a sudden, your mind opens up, and you go, actually, I can do things that I thought I didn't even think were possible. The hardest part now is actually sticking to it and being consistent. Okay. Um, it's about doing it consistently over time. And so what's going to happen is some days you won't feel like it. Some days you're going to go, oh, this is just so insignificant. What's the point? Remember, don't compare your old self to your current self, and don't compare someone's chapter 20 with your chapter 1. Very important for recovery. Now, team, any other questions you've got? Let me know in the chat if there's a specific question. Jen says, what is the point? Does it actually help with recovery? Yeah, because what we're doing, Jen, here is actually building capacity in the nervous system. And so you might be wondering, this is a great question, because if we're doing something just to like, I'm going to do this so it gets me better, it's not going to work because there's this pressure that comes with it. But if you take back off the pressure, what we're actually doing here is building your capacity in your nervous system with your brain and your body. And when we do this consistently enough, what we're actually doing is teaching our brain and our body to respond appropriately to stimulus. And when you do that long enough and consistently enough, and you do all the right things to improve your health and well-being, what actually happens is your body and your brain starts to function appropriately and normally again. And that is what we call recovery. So that is the whole point of why we're doing this, right? Recovery is a process. And until we start treating it like a process, you're not going to get better. If you're treating it like I have to do this in exchange to get better, or I have to take this thing to get better, we're going to keep tripping ourselves up. Yeah. When we actually take that pressure away and we realize that recovery is a process, we go about it so differently. And so it's not what you do, it's how you do it that actually matters. If you're doing something, you're like, oh, I hope this works. This better, me doing what Toby Morrison said, it better bloody work. And you're stressed and you're, it's not going to work. But if you come relaxed and you go, you know what, this is what I want to do. I want to improve my physical capacity. I want to improve my mental, emotional well-being. I want to set some goals for my future. Feel more relaxed. And relaxation is the actual thing you need for healing and recovery to occur as well. You can't get better in a stress state, and you can't get better in the state that created this in the first place. So it's not what you do, it's how you do it. Now, a caveat to that is I want to let you know that sometimes you'll be stressed and that's okay. Do not think that you have to be stress-free all the time in order to recover. That's nonsense. It's impossible for you not to be stressed sometimes. And there's a lot of gurus online right now telling you that you just need to feel positive all the time and just have a regulated nervous system all the time and you just feel so calm all the time. You're setting yourself up for failure if you're believing that you have to feel perfect all the time or that you have to be regulated all the time. Progress over perfection. That's perfectionistic thinking. Progress over perfection. Roof Foreman says, do I need to have exactly the same routine every day? No, absolutely not. So this is why the baseline framework is all about flexibility. So within your baseline roof, there is what we call a base zone, which is basically the envelope in what is appropriate for your current capacity right now. And it will vary depending on the quality of your sleep that you've had, the stress that you've experienced, the food that you're eating, the energy in or energy out activities that you're doing and experiencing. And so it is flexible. This is why it's so important to have a flexible approach and to not feel like it has to be exactly the same every day, because that's when you can trip yourself up and get nowhere. Mark W asks, are supplements a good idea? So a supplement is literally just that. It's supplementary. And so I don't think supplements are bad. I think, in fact, supplements can be useful as long as you're using them as a supplementary process for your recovery. Meaning, if you're taking a supplement and hoping it makes you feel 100% better, I would say don't do that. Because if that was to be true, I'd be telling you to go and take it right now. Right? If you're taking supplements to help yourself with your process of recovery and it helps you 5 or 10%, I'm all for it. So my rule of thumb is if it helps 5 or 10%, why not? Right? But don't get sucked into this belief that a supplement or a pill is going to rid all of your problems. Again, that's an outward approach that simply hasn't worked in the last 20 years that I've been doing this work. Supplements aren't good or bad, they just are. If there's something that's useful and it helps 5 or 10%, I'm a massive advocate for that. Vicky says, how do I safely find my physical baseline so I can build up one step at a time? This is a great question. The safest way to find your physical capacity is actually to start with 50% less than you think you can do. Which is pretty important, because a lot of the time you compare yourself to your old self, or you kind of have a warped view of where you're actually at. What you want to do is actually scale it back. Remember that less is more initially. So this less is more approach is just initially so you can be more consistent. Less is more doesn't mean you do nothing. It just means that you do less but consistently every single day. So let's say, as an example, you're like, Toby, I'm going to do a 1 hour walk. And you do a 1 hour walk in one day, but you feel like absolute crap. And then you can't move for 2 weeks and you feel like crap. what I would say is, why don't you start with 10 minutes and do that every single day? And by the end of the week, you've actually done 10 more minutes. You've done 70 minutes total, 1 hour and 10 minutes over a week, and you feel okay. Your health is maintained versus going all or nothing. And so this less is more approach initially is very important. We always recommend starting with 50% less than you think you can do and starting there. I had a client years and years and years ago come into my office at the health clinic, and her first session, she was coming for chronic fatigue syndrome. She'd tried everything. She was a real type A perfectionist. She was amazing. She'd achieved so many things in her life, but she was really struggling with chronic fatigue syndrome. And when she came in, I said, "What's the biggest problem?" And she said, "I literally just I have one good day. I do everything, and then I just feel so bad for weeks on end." And I was like, "All right, we need to stop that." And so I created a routine and rhythm and a program for her. And it included, scheduled rest breaks. It included, obviously, a nutritional plan, but it also included a restorative movement plan. And I'll never forget the first session we did. I took her through it. It went for 4 minutes. Okay. Now, this woman was a tennis player and a surfer, and she was a high achiever. So we did the 4 minutes. I made sure it was very, very less is more approach. I made sure that her heart rate wasn't super high. I made sure that I looked at the cues from her body language and her facial expressions that this was very, very easy and doable, right? Because you have to start with what's easy and doable. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to maintain it. After the 4 minutes, it was, again, I cut back 50% of what she thought she could do. I cut it back even more. After the 4 minutes, she looked at me and I said, "All right, we're done now. Let's go back into my office and we'll finish up with the drawing of the routine and the structure." And she looked at me and she goes, "That's it?" And I said, "Yeah, that's it." And she goes, "But I'm not even in pain yet." And I said, "That's the point. The whole point of you coming to me is for you not to be in pain and suffering." And the penny dropped like that. It was like this epiphany. She was like, "Oh." I said, "Every time you do something, you're exhausted. I'm going to help you stop doing that. I'm going to give you the right appropriate amount for you, and we're going to build from here." Now, what was crazy, that 4 minutes within 3 months turned into 15 to 20 minutes. Within 6 months, that woman was jogging again. Within 1 year, she was playing tennis and surfing again. Now she's fully recovered. She travels the world, and she just lives an incredible life. But we had to start with where she was at. And so it's almost like this initial holding back for the slingshot to push you forwards and propel you forwards. And so this is where consistency over intensity wins the race. I'd love to know in the chat, what's been most helpful for you today? There's a question around brain fog. How do I get rid of brain fog? So brain fog and all other symptoms, and we put it in an umbrella, they all dissipate as you get healthier and stronger, okay? The amount of members that we see who start to experience less and less brain fog over months and months and months of doing this work is through the roof. So you don't directly fix brain fog by focusing on fixing brain fog. As long as you're working on your health and well-being and you're moving forwards, the brain fog will dissipate over time. Now, if that's not happening, we have to have a closer look of what are you doing or not doing that's causing this for you to stay stuck. Okay. And from a nuanced perspective for brain fog, we want to look at a few key factors. We want to look at your sleep. We want to look at your nutrition, the value of fuel that you're putting into your body and your brain. Hydration is very important, and making sure you're doing the right amount physically and cognitively too. If you're doing too little, you can have brain fog. If you're doing too much, you can have brain fog. So again, comes back to those key fundamentals. We've got Mark says the idea of going slow, knowing recovery is possible. Can you all write this down? Recovery is hard, but not recovering is harder. Remember that as you're doing this work. Awesome, Marianne. Great to see you here. Yeah, there's always things to tweak. And so as you start to get healthier and stronger, as you start to get better, it's actually context and nuance that's going to help you unlock the next level of recovery for you. It's never just a video that you need to watch to kind of get better. And so as you get better, it's like less and less content, but more and more context is vital to get to new levels of progress and growth as well. Awesome. Super glad this was helpful. I'd love to know, out of 10, was this a 10 out of 10 session for you? Was this a 1 out of 10 session for you? One word to describe how you're feeling now compared to the start of this call. I'm hoping you're feeling more hopeful. I hope you've had some insights. Awesome, Eve. We love your honesty. 8's good. I'll take an 8. 10 out of 10. Thank you. Awesome. I'm hoping you're feeling more hopeful and optimistic and lighter at the end of the tunnel. That's great. Super great. As we wrap up this session, we will send a recording to you so you can go over the session to help you. For those of you who would like to sit down with me and do a proper health assessment on where you're at with your recovery, what the biggest bottlenecks are for you in terms of you not getting better, where you might be stuck, and then creating an initial 3-step plan for your recovery. I'm running a private workshop in 2 weeks' time at this time zone for 30 people. And so I want to offer this to you guys before we offer it to the public, because we'll obviously send it out to over 100,000 people later this week. So I'm going to pop in the chat the link. It's called the CFS Health Assessment 2025. Tickets are $100. You secure your spot. You also get 2 bonus trainings. You'll get the Progress Masterclass, which we kind of spoke a little bit about the 4 areas of progress. In that masterclass, it goes for an hour, and I break down key areas of recovery and then what you can do as your next steps. And also there's a bonus training on the CFS Health recovery model, which is kind of explains what we do with people for their entire recovery. Yep, so all the details are on that page. So all you need to do is click on that. I'd love you to watch the video first, and I'll share my screen right now. This is what it looks like. If you want to stop second guessing everything when it comes to your recovery, and you want to get a proven pathway to recovery and know the exact steps you need to take so you can start to see progress, this is the health assessment that you want to do. All you need to do is click on that link. You will make sure you put down your correct email, because we're going to send you your bonus trainings that you get as part of this workshop. And this is limited to 30 people. This is a small group where we can really sit down. You'll be able to ask me questions at the end as well, specific to the scorecard that you have. So we're going to take you through a specific process that we take our actual members through. There's 4 key areas of recovery, and we categorize them, and then I'm going to take you through our scorecard, and then based off that, you'll know exactly what you need to focus on right now for where you're at. I'd love to know if you're going to come. Just comment the word joined if you have booked in your session. Kavita, my pleasure. It's happening on the 27th of Feb. All the details are there. Same time as we did today. It's going to be great. But I just want to let you know that this will probably be booked out in the next 3 days. So if you want to secure your spot now, take it while it's here. Because in about 3 days' time, it will be not available, which happens every time. I think last time we sold 60 tickets in 2 hours. So click that link. I'll pop it once more before. It's a great next step if you're not wanting to do the full mentorship program right now, or you want to get a taste of what it's like. It's probably a fantastic next step for you. Or if you're just wondering like, what do I do now? What do I do with where I'm at? This workshop is a perfect next step for you as well. Hope to see you there. Big love. Thanks, Julie and Brenda, for being here, and all of you for being so present. Diana Bishop, great to see your face again. Big love, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.